Captain Jake Harrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Wanderer, watching the stars blur past through the main screen. This was humanity's first trip beyond the solar system using the new quantum drive. The small exploration ship carried only 5 crew members on what should have been a simple test mission. "Jump coordinates locked in, Captain," said Navigator Lisa Carter from her station. She was young but skilled, chosen for this mission because of her talent with the new navigation systems. "All systems green," reported Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez from the engine room through the comm. Tony had helped design the quantum drive and knew it better than anyone. Communications Officer Karen Walsh looked up from her console. "Earth Control confirms we're clear for the jump, sir." Security Chief Ben Collins checked his instruments one more time. "All defensive systems ready, just in case we run into anything unexpected." Jake nodded to his crew. These people had trained together for 2 years preparing for this moment. "All right, everyone, let's make history. Lisa, take us out." Lisa activated the quantum drive. The ship shuddered as reality bent around them, and the stars disappeared into a tunnel of swirling light. Everything seemed normal for the first few seconds. Then the alarm started screaming. "What's happening?" Jake called out, gripping his chair as the ship shook violently. "The navigation computer is going crazy," Lisa shouted over the noise. "Something's wrong with the coordinate system. We're way off course." Tony's voice crackled through the comm from the engine room. "The drive is pulling more power than it should. I'm trying to shut it down, but it's not responding." The shaking got worse. Jake could hear things falling and breaking throughout the ship. Just when he thought they might tear apart, everything went quiet. The tunnel of light vanished and normal space returned. But these weren't the stars they expected to see. "Where are we?" Jake asked, looking at the massive structures surrounding them. Lisa stared at her instruments in disbelief. "According to these readings, we're about 50,000 light-years from Earth. That's impossible. The drive wasn't designed to go that far." Karen's face went pale as she looked at her scanner results. "Captain, I'm reading hundreds of ships around us. Really big ships." Through the main screen, they could see enormous vessels that dwarfed their small exploration craft. The ships had strange, elegant designs with flowing curves and gleaming metal surfaces. Some were as large as cities. "Are they hostile?" Ben asked, his hand moving toward the weapons controls. "Hold on that," Jake said calmly. "Let's see what they want first." A new voice suddenly filled the bridge, speaking in a language none of them recognized. The universal translator took a moment to process it, then provided the translation in a deep, commanding tone. "Unknown vessel, you have violated the sacred space of the Zephyrian Empire. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." Jake looked around at his crew. They all seemed nervous, but he felt strangely calm. Getting lost was just another problem to solve. "Karen, open a channel." "Channel open, sir." Jake stood up and faced the main screen. "Hey there, sorry about dropping in unannounced. We seem to be a bit lost. Could you point us toward Earth?" The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. Finally, the voice returned, sounding confused. "You apologize for your violation, and you request directions?" "Well, yeah," Jake said with a shrug. "We didn't mean to end up here. Our navigation system had a malfunction. We're from Earth, in the Milky Way galaxy. Do you know where that is?" Another long pause. "You claim to be from beyond the known galaxy?" "I guess so," Jake replied. "We were just testing our new faster-than-light drive. First time using it, actually. Still working." "Out the bugs," Lisa whispered. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships. They could destroy us without even trying." Jake nodded but kept his voice steady. "Look, we don't want any trouble. We're explorers, not warriors. If we're in your space without permission, we'll gladly leave as soon as we figure out how to get home." The alien voice seemed to be conferring with others. They could hear muffled discussions in the background. Finally, the voice returned, more formal this time. "I am Admiral Keth Ara of the Imperial Fleet. You have trespassed in the most sacred system of the Zephyrian Empire. No foreign vessel has ever violated this space and lived. However, your unusual response requires consultation with higher authority. You will accompany our ships to the capital world. Sure thing, Jake said. Just point us in the right direction. Ben looked at him with wide eyes. Captain, are you sure about this? Jake sat back down in his chair. Ben, we're 50,000 light-years from home with a broken navigation system, surrounded by hundreds of ships that could blow us up in seconds. Being polite seems like our best option right now. Admiral Cathara's voice returned. You will follow the escort ships to Zephyros Prime. Any attempt to deviate from the assigned course will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Jake replied. We'll follow your lead. As massive alien ships moved into formation around the tiny human vessel, Karen looked at her captain with amazement. Sir, how are you so calm about this? Jake smiled. Karen, I've been in the military for 15 years. I've dealt with angry generals, crashed helicopters, and budget meetings with politicians. Aliens with big ships are just another kind of problem. Besides, they haven't shot at us yet, which is a good sign. Tony's voice came through the comm. Captain, I'm getting some interesting readings from their ships. Their technology is way more advanced than ours, but I think I can figure out how it works. Good, Tony. See what you can learn. Lisa, plot a course following their escort ships. Everyone stay alert but friendly. We're representing all of humanity here. As the small human ship began following the alien fleet toward the capital world, Jake couldn't help but think about how different this was from what the scientists back on Earth had predicted for first contact. No grand speeches, no formal protocols, just people talking to other people and trying to work things out. The Wanderer moved deeper into the Zephyrian Empire, its 5 human crew members completely unaware that they had just triggered the greatest diplomatic crisis in galactic history. To them, this was just an unexpected detour on their way home. Admiral Cathara watched the human ship on her command screen, still trying to understand what had just happened. In her 300 years of service, no one had ever responded to Imperial authority with casual friendliness. She found herself actually curious about these strange beings who apologized for breaking ancient laws and asked for directions home. The fleet continued toward Zephyros Prime, carrying news that would shake the foundations of an empire that had ruled unchanged for thousands of years. The capital world of Zephyros Prime was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Crystal spires reached into the clouds, connected by flowing bridges that seemed to defy gravity. The Imperial Palace sat at the center of it all, a massive structure that could house millions of beings. Admiral Cathara escorted the human crew through corridors lined with precious metals and glowing gems. Ancient tapestries showed the history of the empire, depicting conquests and ceremonies that stretched back thousands of years. This place is incredible, Lisa said, looking up at the vaulted ceiling. How old is it? The palace has stood for 3,000 years, Admiral Cathara replied, still puzzled by the humans' casual attitude. It is the seat of power for Emperor Vextar, the Eternal. Tony stopped to examine a decorative panel that pulsed with soft light. Is this some kind of energy distribution system? That's really clever. Mind if I take a look at how it works? Admiral Cathara stared at him. You wish to study Imperial technology? Well, yeah, Tony said with a grin. I'm an engineer. This stuff is fascinating. We could probably learn a lot from each other. They entered a waiting chamber where several alien servants struggled to move a heavy ceremonial table. Without thinking, Karen rushed over to help them lift it. Here, let me give you a hand, she said, grabbing one end of the table. The servants froze in shock. Admiral Cathara's mouth fell open. You cannot. That is work for servants. Karen looked confused. It's just a table, no big deal. Lisa noticed that one of the ornate chairs was wobbling and went to investigate. This leg is loose, she announced, kneeling down to examine it. I think I can fix it if you have some tools. You wish to repair Imperial furniture? Admiral Cathara asked weakly. It'll just take a minute, Lisa said. I'm pretty good with this kind of thing. Jake watched the alien admiral's expression with amusement. Sorry about my crew. We're not very formal. Hope that's okay. Before Admiral Cathara could respond, massive doors opened to reveal the Imperial Council chamber. The room was enormous, filled with beings from dozens of different species. The far end, on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal, sat Emperor Vextar. The Emperor was tall and elegant, with silver skin and eyes that glowed with inner light. He wore robes that shimmered like starlight, and his presence filled the room with authority that had been unchallenged for centuries. "Approach," the Emperor commanded, in a voice that echoed through the chamber. The humans walked forward, looking around at the impressive architecture and alien council members. Jake nodded politely to several aliens as they passed, as if he were walking into a business meeting. "You stand before the Imperial Council of the Zephyrian Empire," Emperor Vextar announced. "You have violated our most sacred laws by entering our capital system without permission. The penalty for this crime is death." Jake looked around the room, then back at the Emperor. "Well, that seems a bit harsh for getting lost. We really didn't mean to cause any trouble." The council members began whispering among themselves. No one had ever responded to an imperial death sentence with mild disagreement. However, the Emperor continued studying the humans carefully. "Your unusual nature requires investigation. You will face the ancient trials to determine your worthiness. If you survive, the Empire may consider alternatives to execution." "Sure, what kind of trials?" Jake asked. "Physical tests? Written exam? We're pretty good at adapting." Emperor Vextar blinked. In his 3 centuries of rule, no one had ever asked for clarification about imperial trials. They usually just trembled in fear. "The trials will test your courage, wisdom, and honor," the Emperor explained. "Many have attempted them. Few have survived." "Sounds challenging," Jake said with interest. "When do we start?" Ben stepped forward and addressed the Emperor directly. "Sir, will our crew be facing these trials together or individually? Because we work better as a team." The council chamber fell silent. Speaking directly to the Emperor without permission was unthinkable. Several guards reached for their weapons. Emperor Vextar held up a hand to stop them. He found himself genuinely curious about these strange beings. "You may face the trials as a group, if that is your preference." "Great," Jake said. "That'll work better for us." During the formal announcement of the trial schedule, Tony pulled out a small notebook and started sketching the energy systems he had observed in the palace. His drawings caught the attention of several Zephyrian engineers in the council, who crept closer to see his work. "This power distribution network could be much more efficient," Tony muttered to himself, not realizing he was being overheard. "If you routed the energy through here instead." One of the Zephyrian engineers, a low-ranking technician named Veltok, gasped at the simple improvement Tony had suggested. That would increase efficiency by 30%, he whispered. "Really?" Tony looked up with interest. "How does your current system work? Maybe we can figure out some other improvements." Veltok glanced nervously at the higher-ranking officials, then leaned in to explain the Empire's power grid. Soon Tony and several Zephyrian engineers were deep in technical discussion, completely ignoring the formal proceedings around them. Karen, meanwhile, had pulled out her tablet and was showing pictures of Earth to anyone who seemed interested. "This is where we come from," she explained to a group of curious aliens. "That's New York City, and this one shows the Grand Canyon." The aliens gathered around her, fascinated by the images of the strange blue world. Karen found herself answering dozens of questions about human culture, Earth's geography, and how their society worked. Lisa had noticed that the ceremonial table was still wobbling and had quietly borrowed some tools from a maintenance worker to fix it properly. She worked on it during the Emperor's speech, occasionally making small satisfied sounds when a joint fit perfectly. Emperor Vextar found himself losing focus on his own ceremonial pronouncements as he watched the humans interact with his subjects. These beings showed no fear of imperial authority, treated everyone with the same casual respect, and seemed genuinely interested in helping solve problems. When the formal session ended, the Emperor approached Jake directly. "Your people are unusual." "We get that a lot," Jake replied with a smile. "We tend to focus on practical things rather than ceremony. Hope that's not a problem." "It is. Refreshing," the Emperor admitted. When did you last smile, human Jake? Jake thought about it. This morning, I think. Tony told a pretty good joke about quantum mechanics over breakfast. Emperor Vextar realized he could not remember the last time he had smiled. And you face the possibility of death tomorrow without fear? Well, we'll do our best in the trials, Jake said. If they're fair tests, we should be fine. If they're not fair, then worrying won't help anyway. As the humans were escorted to their quarters, the Emperor watched them go with growing fascination. In one afternoon, they had treated his Imperial Council like a friendly gathering, improved his palace's efficiency, and made him question traditions he had never thought to examine. For the first time in decades, Emperor Vextar was looking forward to tomorrow. The first trial was called the Test of Infinite Patience. According to Imperial tradition, the subjects had to sit completely still in meditation for 3 days and nights, without food, water, or sleep. Most beings broke after a few hours either, from physical discomfort or mental exhaustion. The humans looked at the meditation chamber, a stark room with 5 stone platforms, and immediately began problem solving. Okay, so we need to stay here for 3 days, Jake said, examining the room. Lisa, what do you think about taking shifts? 2 people meditate while 3 rest? That could work, Lisa agreed. We brought some energy bars and water bottles. We can share them quietly. Is that allowed? Karen asked the trial proctor, a tall alien named Zixara, who had overseen this trial for 50 years. Zixara consulted the ancient rulebook. The law states that subjects must remain in the chamber and maintain peaceful composure. It does not specifically forbid cooperation or sustenance. Great, Tony said, settling down on one of the platforms. Ben and I will take the first shift. You 3 can rest and keep watch. As the hours passed, the humans rotated positions, shared quiet conversations about their families back on Earth, and even taught each other card games using a deck Karen had brought. They treated the trial like a camping trip with friends. Zixara watched in amazement as the humans not only endured the trial, but seemed to actually enjoy it. By the second day, she found herself joining their conversations during her breaks, learning about human culture and sharing stories about her own people. In all my years overseeing this trial, Zixara confided to Karen, I have never seen subjects help each other succeed. Your species is remarkable. The second trial was the test of impossible choice. Subjects were presented with a scenario where they had to choose between saving a village of innocent people or preserving an ancient artifact that contained irreplaceable historical knowledge. The trial was designed to have no correct answer, forcing subjects to face impossible moral decisions. The humans listened to the scenario carefully. Then Jake raised his hand. Quick question. Why can't we do both? The trial administrator, Chiefy, Arbiter Moldan, blinked his 4 eyes in confusion. I beg your pardon. Well, you said the village is in danger from a flood, and the artifact is in a temple that's about to collapse, Jake explained. But you didn't say we couldn't organize an evacuation while also securing the artifact. Tony, how long would it take to shore up that temple? Tony studied the holographic display showing the scenario. Give me some basic tools and maybe 6 people. I could stabilize it in a couple hours. Lisa, can you work out evacuation routes for the village? Already on it, Lisa said, pointing to efficient paths she had mapped out. If we start with the families who have young children and elderly members, we can have everyone to safety in about 3 hours. Perfect, Jake said. Karen, you're good with people. Can you help coordinate the evacuation while Ben and I handle the temple? Chief Arbiter Moldan stared at them. But you must choose. That is the nature of the trial. We are choosing, Jake replied. We're choosing to save everyone and everything. Why would we accept that some good things have to be lost? The Chief Arbiter consulted with his assistants for several minutes. Finally, he returned with a confused expression. In 3,000 years, no one has ever proposed a solution that saves both options. The trial parameters must be reconsidered. The third trial was the test of ultimate combat, where each human would face the Empire's greatest warriors in single combat. The humans were led into an arena where thousands of spectators had gathered to watch. Ben looked at the massive alien warriors, waiting for them, and turned to the combat master. Are we supposed to fight to the death, or is this more like sparring? Combat Master Thekron, a veteran of hundreds of battles, was taken aback by the question. The trial is combat until surrender or defeat. Death is possible. Okay, but nobody really wants to get hurt here, right? Ben continued. How about we make this a training exercise instead? I'd love to learn your fighting techniques, and maybe I can show you some human martial arts. Thekron had expected fear, anger, or desperate bravado. He had not expected a human to suggest turning mortal combat into a friendly training session. I suppose there is no rule against learning during combat, Thekron admitted. What followed was unlike any trial in Imperial history. Instead of desperate battles, the arena became filled with teaching and learning. Ben showed the Zephyrian warriors practical self-defense techniques while they taught him their ceremonial combat forms. Tony faced an opponent twice his size and spent the match asking questions about the alien's fighting style and sharing observations about leverage and balance. His opponent became so interested in the technical discussion that he forgot they were supposed to be fighting. Lisa turned her combat trial into a lesson about spatial awareness and movement, treating it like a complicated dance that she and her opponent could perfect together. Karen used her match to practice the Zephyrian language, asking her opponent to correct her pronunciation between exchanges. Jake's opponent was the legendary warrior Korvash, undefeated in 300 battles. Korvash expected to face either a trembling coward or a raging berserker. Instead, Jake approached combat like a chess match, studying his opponent's style and adapting his own techniques accordingly. You fight like you are solving a puzzle, Korvash observed during a break in their match. That's exactly what I'm doing, Jake replied. You're really skilled. I'm trying to figure out how your style works so I can learn from it. By the end of the combat trials, the arena was filled with humans and aliens sharing techniques, discussing philosophy, and building friendships. The spectators who had come to watch traditional combat found themselves witnessing something entirely new. The fourth trial was the test of cosmic navigation, where Lisa had to find her way through a maze of space that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. She was given only ancient star charts and mystical guidance tools that most beings couldn't understand. Lisa looked at the charts and instruments, then pulled out her tablet. Okay, so this is showing me positions in normal space, but the mystical readings indicate dimensional shifts. If I combine your traditional methods with human mathematics, she spent an hour working out calculations that merged Zephyrian mysticism with human stellar cartography. The result was a navigation method that was both more accurate and easier to use than either system alone. This is impossible, whispered the navigation master as Lisa successfully completed the maze in record time. No one has ever combined the ancient ways with mathematical precision. Why not? Lisa asked. They're just different ways of understanding the same thing. When you put them together, they work better. The final trial was the test of divine wisdom, where the humans had to answer questions about the nature of existence, morality, and leadership that had puzzled philosophers for millennia. The questions were presented by the High Philosopher, an ancient being whose wisdom was legendary throughout the Empire. The humans listened carefully to each question, then discussed their answers among themselves before responding. What is the highest virtue a leader can possess? The High Philosopher asked. The humans talked it over for a few minutes. Jake answered, for the group. Probably the willingness to admit when you're wrong and ask for help. No one person knows everything, so good leaders listen to other people and change their minds when they learn something new. The High Philosopher had expected complex philosophical arguments or references to ancient texts. The simple, practical answer surprised him. How should one face death? Came the next question. Karen answered this one. By making sure you've been kind to people and haven't left important things unsaid. Death is scary, but regret is worse. As the trials concluded, Emperor Vextar looked at the results in disbelief. Not only had the humans passed every test, but they had fundamentally changed how the trials worked. They had turned tests of endurance into exercises in cooperation, impossible choices into creative problem-solving, combat into education, and complex philosophy into practical wisdom. In 5,000 years of imperial history, the emperor announced to his council, "No beings have ever completed the trials in this manner. The humans have not simply passed the tests, they have improved them." News of the humans' success spread across the empire faster than anyone expected. The story of 5 beings who had turned ancient trials into learning experiences captured the imagination of billions. More importantly, their casual approach to hierarchy and their willingness to help anyone, regardless of rank, began to influence imperial culture in ways no one had predicted. On the industrial world of Keftar, a low-ranking technician named Veltak shared Tony's engineering improvements with his supervisor. For the first time in his career, his ideas were taken seriously because they came with human backing. Within days, power efficiency across the planet increased by 20%. On the agricultural world of Primdos, farmers began organizing cooperative groups inspired by Karen's descriptions of human community projects. They shared resources and knowledge in ways that had been forbidden under the strict caste system for thousands of years. Emperor Vexitar found himself seeking out the humans' opinions on matters of state. Jake's straightforward advice on resource distribution and conflict resolution proved remarkably effective. The Emperor began questioning whether the Empire's complex hierarchy actually helped or hurt their civilization. "Your people solve problems by working together," the Emperor observed during one of their daily conversations. "My people solve problems by following ancient rules. Which method is more effective?" "Both have their place," Jake replied. "Rules are useful when they help people cooperate. But if the rules stop people from solving problems, maybe it's time to change the rules." High Chancellor Mordeth watched these changes with growing alarm. Second in power only to the Emperor, he had built his career on maintaining the traditional order. The humans represented everything he feared: change, uncertainty, and the loss of his carefully cultivated authority. "These aliens are destroying everything that makes our empire great," he told his supporters in secret meetings. "They mock our traditions, ignore our customs, and encourage the lower castes to forget their place." "What do you propose we do?" asked General Nextar, commander of the Imperial Guard. "We eliminate them," Mordeth said coldly. "Make it look like an accident. The Emperor has become too attached to these creatures to see the danger they represent." Meanwhile, other galactic powers had taken notice of the humans. The hegemony of twisted stars, ancient enemies of the Zephyrian Empire, sent spies to learn about these newcomers who had gained imperial favor so quickly. Agent Silthara infiltrated the palace as a servant and observed the humans for several days. Her report back to the hegemony was deeply troubling. These beings possess no advanced technology or superior firepower. Their strength lies in their ability to inspire cooperation and change. They are far more dangerous than any weapon. The robotic collective of Eternal Logic sent probe ships to monitor human activities. Their calculations showed that human unpredictability represented a statistical anomaly that could not be properly analyzed or controlled. The collective decided that humanity must be studied more carefully or eliminated as a chaotic variable. The humans remained completely unaware of the political upheaval they had caused. They were focused on practical concerns, understanding their location, learning about local technology, and figuring out how to get home. Karen had established regular communication with Earth, sending detailed reports about their discoveries and receiving updates about their families. These messages, transmitted through Zephyrian communication networks, were intercepted by multiple intelligence services across the galaxy. Earth reports that 3 more exploration ships are being prepared for launch, Karen announced during one of their daily briefings. "They want to establish formal diplomatic contact." "That's great news," Jake said. "The more our people know about each other, the better." Lisa had been working with Zephyrian navigators to map the route back to Earth. Her collaboration had produced star charts that were more accurate than anything either species had created alone. "I think we can find our way home whenever we're ready to leave," she reported. Tony had become deeply involved in joint engineering projects with Imperial scientists. His human perspective on Zephyrian technology combined with their advanced materials and energy systems, had led to breakthrough innovations. "We could revolutionize faster than light travel if we keep working together," he told Jake enthusiastically. Ben had been training with Imperial security forces, sharing human tactics and learning alien combat techniques. His practical approach to security had impressed the professionals, while his respectful treatment of all ranks had won over the troops. "These people really know their stuff," he reported. "We could learn a lot from each other." Emperor Vextar began implementing small changes throughout the Empire based on human suggestions. Work teams that included members from different castes proved more effective than traditional hierarchical groups. Communication systems that allowed information to flow up as well as down the chain of command identified and solved problems faster. But these changes also created resistance. Traditional nobles found their ancient privileges questioned. Military officers discovered that lower-ranking soldiers had valuable insights. Religious leaders faced questions about doctrines that had never been challenged. High Chancellor Mordeth's faction grew stronger as more traditionalists joined his cause. They argued that the humans were undermining everything that had made the Empire stable for thousands of years. "Order is the foundation of civilization," Mordeth declared in private meetings. "These humans bring chaos. They must be stopped before they destroy us all." The situation became more complex when diplomatic messages arrived from other galactic powers. The hegemony of Twisted Stars requested formal meetings to discuss mutual interests regarding the human situation. The Collective of Eternal Logic demanded access to human subjects for statistical analysis and threat assessment. Emperor Vextar found himself in an impossible position. Protecting the humans might mean war with multiple galactic powers. Abandoning them would mean losing the most positive changes his empire had experienced in centuries. "What would your people do in this situation?" he asked Jake during one of their evening conversations. Jake thought about it carefully. "Back home, when we face a problem this big, we try to get everyone talking. Most conflicts happen because people misunderstand each other or want different things. If you can figure out what everyone really needs, you can usually find a solution that works for everybody." "You believe the hegemony and the collective can be reasoned with?" "I don't know," Jake admitted. "But I'd rather try talking first before, assuming we need to fight. Fighting should be the last option, not the first one." The Emperor realized that the humans had given him something more valuable than technology or military tactics. They had given him a completely different way of thinking about problems. That night, as Emperor Vextar reviewed reports from across his empire, he saw the same pattern everywhere. Worlds that had adopted human-inspired cooperation methods were more productive, more innovative, and more stable than those that maintained traditional hierarchies. But he also saw the growing resistance. Mordeth's supporters were organizing. Other galactic powers were making threats, and some Imperial citizens feared that too much change too quickly would destroy their way of life. The Emperor faced a choice that would determine the future of his empire. He could preserve the old ways and sacrifice the humans to maintain peace with other powers, or he could embrace change and risk everything on the belief that cooperation was stronger than conflict. As he prepared for sleep, Emperor Vextar realized that the humans had already given him the answer. They never chose between alternatives when they could find a way to achieve both goals. Tomorrow, he would begin planning a solution that protected the humans, preserved the best of Imperial tradition, and created a new kind of relationship between galactic powers. The only question was whether he would have enough time to implement it before Mordeth's coup attempt forced his hand. The coup began at dawn, 3 weeks after the humans had completed their trials. High Chancellor Mordeth struck while Emperor Vextar was in a council meeting, using loyal guards to seize control of the palace communication systems and key government buildings. Jake was having breakfast with Tony in the palace dining hall when Ben rushed in with urgent news. "Something's happening," he reported. "Imperial guards are fighting each other in the corridors, and all the communication systems just went down." "That doesn't sound good," Jake said, setting down his coffee. "Any idea what's going on?" Before Ben could answer, Admiral Cathara burst into the dining hall with a squad of loyal guards. "Humans, you must come with us immediately. The Emperor is in danger." "What kind of danger?" Tony asked, grabbing his toolkit out of habit. "High Chancellor Mordeth has declared the Emperor unfit to rule," Admiral Cathera explained as they hurried through the palace corridors. "He claims the Emperor has been corrupted by alien influence and is attempting to seize power." Jake stopped walking. "Alien influence? You mean us?" "I'm afraid so. Mordeth believes your presence has destabilized the Empire. He intends to execute you as soon as he consolidates power." The humans exchanged looks. Karen spoke for all of them. "Well, that's inconvenient. What can we do to help sort this out?" Admiral Cathera stared at them. Even facing execution, these beings wanted to help solve the problem rather than flee from it. They found Emperor Vextar in the palace's secure command center, surrounded by loyal forces and monitoring the situation across the capital. The Emperor looked older than he had weeks before, the stress of command weighing heavily on him. "My friends," he said when he saw the humans, "I fear I have brought disaster upon you. This conflict is my fault for allowing change too quickly." "Hey, don't blame yourself," Jake said, studying the tactical displays. "This Mordeth guy was going to cause trouble eventually. We just gave him an excuse. The question is, how do we fix it?" Lisa was already analyzing the battle maps. "It looks like Mordeth controls about 60% of the military units on the planet, but most of the off-world forces are still loyal to you. If we can establish communication with them..." "The communication arrays are under rebel control," Admiral Cathara reported. "We cannot reach our off-world allies." Tony looked up from examining a damaged communication console. "What if we bypass their jamming? I think I can jury-rig something using the palace's power grid and some of these Zephyrian components." "Is that possible?" the Emperor asked. "Probably," Tony said with a grin. "I've been studying your technology for weeks. Let me see what I can do." While Tony worked on restoring communications, Ben studied the tactical situation with Imperial military commanders. His practical approach to security proved valuable as he identified weaknesses in the rebel positions. "They're spread too thin," he observed. "Mordeth took a lot of territory quickly, but he doesn't have enough troops to hold all of it effectively. If we coordinate our counterattacks..." Karen had begun organizing communication between different loyal factions, using her language skills and natural diplomacy to coordinate resistance efforts. Her ability to talk to people from different species and castes proved crucial in building an effective coalition. The battle that followed was unlike anything in Imperial military history. Instead of the formal, hierarchical combat traditions that had dominated Zephyrian warfare for millennia, the Loyalist forces fought using human-inspired tactics that emphasized flexibility, cooperation, and creative problem-solving. Mixed units of different species worked together in ways that had never been attempted before. Tony's communication improvements allowed real-time coordination between ground forces and orbital assets. Ben's tactical innovations let smaller Loyalist units outmaneuver larger rebel formations. But the most significant change was in the motivation of the troops. The Loyalist forces weren't just fighting for the Emperor or against rebellion. They were fighting for the idea that people from different backgrounds could work together to solve problems. The turning point came when Tony successfully restored long-range communications. Off-world Imperial forces, learning of the coup attempt, began arriving to support the Emperor. But more importantly, news of the conflict reached other star systems where human-inspired cooperation had taken root. Volunteer forces from across the Empire began arriving to help. These weren't traditional military units, but cooperative groups of workers, engineers, scientists, and ordinary citizens who had embraced the human example of solving problems together. Mordeth found his rebellion facing not just the Imperial military, but an entire movement of people who refused to accept that change had to be imposed from above or prevented through force. The final battle took place in the capital city's main plaza. Mordeth's remaining forces, surrounded and outnumbered, made their last stand in front of the ancient monument to Imperial unity. Jake found himself talking to rebel soldiers, not to demand their surrender, but to understand why they were fighting. Many of them, he discovered, weren't opposed to change itself. but feared that too much change too quickly would destroy everything they valued about their culture. "We're not trying to destroy your traditions," Jake explained to a group of rebel officers. "We're trying to help you build on them. The best parts of your culture, honor, cooperation, dedication to something bigger than yourself, those don't have to change. We just want to make them work better." One by one, rebel units began laying down their weapons. Not because they were defeated, but because they realized the humans weren't trying to conquer or replace their culture, just improve it. High Chancellor Mordeth, isolated and abandoned by most of his supporters, finally surrendered when even his personal guard refused to continue fighting. In the aftermath of the failed coup, Emperor Vextar addressed the Empire from the palace steps. Humans and aliens stood together in the crowd, representatives of the new cooperation that had emerged from the crisis. "This conflict has shown us that change does not have to mean destruction," the Emperor declared. "We can honor our past while building a better future. We can maintain our identity while learning from others." Jake stepped forward when the Emperor finished his speech. "Your Majesty, we've learned a lot from you too, but our people are waiting for us back on Earth. We need to go home and tell them about the amazing friends we've made here." Emperor Vextar smiled, an expression that was becoming more common since the humans' arrival. "What can the Empire offer you in gratitude for your service? Titles, territory, wealth, or technology?" "Thanks, but we really just want to go home," Jake replied. "Maybe we can set up some kind of exchange program. Our people would love to meet yours." As the UES Wanderer prepared for departure, loaded with new navigation equipment and detailed star charts provided by grateful Zephyrian scientists, the humans said goodbye to the friends they had made. Tony exchanged technical notes with Veltak and other engineers. Karen promised to maintain regular communication. Lisa shared navigation techniques with Imperial pilots. Ben trained his replacement in the new security methods they had developed together. The small human ship lifted off from Zephyros Prime, escorted by a fleet of Imperial vessels to the edge of the system. As they prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Jake opened a final communication channel. "Thanks for everything," he said. "This turned out way better than we expected when we got lost." Emperor Vextar's voice came through clearly. "Safe travels, friends. The Empire will always welcome humanity." The Wanderer disappeared into hyperspace, carrying 5 humans who had accidentally reformed a galactic empire, ended a civil war, and established humanity as a recognized galactic power. To them, it had just been an interesting detour on their original mission. Back on Zephyros Prime, Emperor Vextar watched the stars and reflected on how 5 humans had accomplished in weeks what his empire couldn't achieve in centuries. They had brought real change without conquest, fear, or force, simply by being themselves and treating everyone they met as equals worthy of respect and friendship. The Empire would never be the same. And that, the Emperor realized, was exactly what they needed. In the months that followed, Earth received the crew's detailed reports and began planning formal diplomatic missions to their new galactic neighbors. Other human exploration vessels continued pushing into unknown space, carrying with them the same unpretentious attitude that had accidentally made their species a galactic power. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, not with weapons or conquest, but with curiosity, friendship, and the simple belief that most problems could be solved if people were willing to work together.